The moment my phone rang, I knew something was wrong. No one gets a call from their doctor at 7:42 in the morning with good news. I was still half asleep, lying in bed while Lisa was in the shower. Steam drifted from the open bathroom door, the sound of water masking my conversation. "Mr. Johnson, I have your test results." I sat up, suddenly alert. "Okay. And?" Pause. "A little too long. You've tested positive for an STI." The words didn't register at first. It felt like someone else was on the line, some other unlucky guy getting the news. But no, this was my call. My name on the chart. My stomach twisted. My skin felt hot and tight. "That's not possible," I said automatically. But the truth was already creeping in, cold and sharp. "I assume you're sexually active?" the doctor asked, his tone careful. "Yeah. I'm married." My voice sounded hollow. He hesitated. Then, "You may want to have a conversation with your partner." The line went dead before I could respond. Lisa stepped out of the bathroom a moment later, wrapped in a towel, her skin glistening with moisture. Normally, I'd admire the sight. Not this time. Not after what I had just heard. She ran a comb through her wet blonde hair, glancing at me in the mirror. "What's wrong?" My phone was still in my hand. My grip was so tight my knuckles had gone white. I swallowed, my throat dry as sandpaper. The doctor called. She didn't even flinch, just kept combing. "Yeah. What about?" I watched her carefully, my pulse hammering in my ears. "I tested positive for something." Now she froze, just for half a second. A flicker of something in her eyes before she schooled her face into a mask of indifference. But I caught it. I saw it. She turned to me, her expression carefully neutral. "What do you mean?" I stood up. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. "You know exactly what I mean." Silence. She blinked, once, twice, then let out a breathy laugh. "Are you seriously accusing me of something right now?" My stomach churned. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted her to throw her arms around me, to panic, to demand how this could have happened because there should be no explanation except a mistake in the lab. Instead, she crossed her arms. Defensive. Too defensive. "Maybe you should think about where else you've been sticking it before pointing fingers at me." I actually took a step back, like she had slapped me. "Excuse me?" She rolled her eyes. "I mean, I know you go to the gym all the time. Locker rooms are disgusting. Maybe you sat on something." "Sat on something?" She flinched at my voice, then sighed like I was being ridiculous. "You're acting crazy, James. I don't have anything, so obviously it's from something else. Maybe your doctor screwed up. Or maybe," her eyes narrowed slightly, "maybe you need to tell me something." My breath caught. She was flipping it. On me. I had just caught an infection from her, and now she was planting doubt in my mind like maybe I was the guilty one. And for a second, a stupid, tiny second, I almost questioned myself. But then I saw it. A faint red mark on her collarbone. Just below her neck. A mark I hadn't put there that I stared at the mark, my pulse roaring in my ears. It was small, barely noticeable under the soft glow of the morning light. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. A faint, reddish bruise, right at the curve of her collarbone. Not a scratch. Not irritation from jewelry. A bite mark. A mark I didn't put there. Lisa caught me looking and adjusted her towel, pulling it up slightly like she had just realized it was visible. Too late. I had seen it. And worse, she knew I had seen it. My blood ran ice cold. "You want to try that again?" My voice came out lower, steadier than I expected. Lisa's expression didn't change at first. She just stared at me for a moment, then tilted her head slightly, like she was deciding how to play this. "James," she said finally, in that sickeningly patient voice she used when she wanted to make me feel stupid. "I don't know what you think you're seeing, but you're acting insane." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I reached out. Fast. Before she could react, I grabbed the edge of the towel and yanked it down just an inch, exposing more of her collarbone. There were more. Faint but unmistakable. Fading but not faded enough. Lisa gasped, jerking away. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I took a step forward. "Who?" She glared. "Who what?" I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth ached. "Who the hell have you been seeing? Are you hearing yourself right now?" She let out a sharp, humorless laugh, like I was the crazy one. "I told you I don't have anything." Maybe you should be asking yourself how you got infected. You are lying to my face. I roared, and for the first time, she flinched. For a second, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not guilt, fear. Like she was trapped. Like she had just realized there was no way out of this. Then, just as quickly, it was gone. She crossed her arms, jutting her chin out. You're being paranoid. You know what? When you calm down and stop acting like a lunatic, we can talk. Until then, I'm done with this conversation. She turned on her heel and walked out of the room. Just like that. Like this was a minor inconvenience. Like she hadn't just been caught red-handed with another man's teeth on her skin. I stood there, chest heaving, fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. She was lying. She was still lying. And worst of all, she wasn't even trying that hard. Lisa left the bedroom like she had just won the argument. Like I was the one acting irrational. Like I was some paranoid idiot losing his mind over nothing. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to breathe through the pure, burning rage that filled my chest. Every instinct in me screamed to chase after her, to make her say it, to force the truth out of her. But I didn't, because I knew Lisa. She was too good at talking her way out of things. Too smooth, too quick to turn things around. If I confronted her again without proof, real, undeniable proof, she'd find a way to flip it back on me. So instead, I waited. I listened as she stomped downstairs, grabbed her keys, and slammed the front door shut. A few seconds later, her car pulled out of the driveway. Good. I had time. I moved fast, straight to her side of the closet, where she kept all her bags neatly lined up on the shelf. Lisa had dozens of purses, but I knew the one she had been carrying most often lately. A small, sleek black handbag, her errands bag, as she called it. I grabbed it and dumped everything onto the bed. Wallet, lipstick, gum, a few loose dollar bills, a receipt for a coffee shop she never mentioned going to, and then a keycard. I picked it up slowly, turning it in my fingers. The logo on the corner made my stomach drop. The Westwood Hotel. A hotel. I stared at it, my pulse thudding in my ears. Lisa wasn't the type to book hotel rooms. We had a house. We had privacy. There was no reason for her to have a keycard unless... I felt sick. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I opened the banking app. If she had booked a room, there'd be a charge. I scrolled through the transaction history, my eyes flying over the list, groceries, gas, online shopping, and then I saw it. Westwood Hotel, $219.37 3 nights ago. That was the night she said she was going to her sister's house. That was the night she came home late, smelling like a different kind of soap. That was the night she claimed she fell asleep watching movies. My vision blurred with rage. I gripped the keycard so tight my fingers ached. This was it. This was the proof I needed. Lisa was a liar, a cheat, and now I was going to catch her in the act. I had the keycard. I had the proof. Now I needed to see it with my own eyes. The Westwood Hotel was across town, a sleek, business-class place. Nice, but not luxury. The kind of place people went when they wanted privacy, when they didn't want to be seen, when they were hiding something. I threw on a jacket, grabbed my car keys, and drove. Every second behind the wheel made my blood boil hotter. My mind raced through 100 different possibilities. Would I find him there? Was he some random guy? Or was it someone I knew? A coworker? A friend? A face flashed in my mind. Mark. Lisa's gym trainer. Too charming. Too familiar. Too many texts Lisa had forgotten to mention. If it was him, I swear to God. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. 15 minutes later, I pulled into the hotel parking lot. I didn't hesitate. Couldn't. I walked straight into the lobby, head down, avoiding eye contact with the receptionist. I knew exactly how hotels like this worked. People came and went without questions. No one cared. The elevator ride up was agonizing. I didn't even know the room number, but I knew Lisa. She was predictable even in her deception. She'd pick something easy to remember. I pulled out my phone and checked the bank statement again. The transaction ID included 714. Room 714. I stepped off the elevator and walked down the hall, my heartbeat like a war drum. I stopped in front of the door. 714. This was it. I slid the keycard into the slot. The light turned green. The lock clicked open. I pushed the door. The room was dark, but I could hear movement. Soft whispers. Sheets rustling. A muffled laugh. A man's laugh. Rage exploded inside me. I kicked the door open. The lights were off, but the glow from the city outside spilled into the room. I saw them, two tangled shapes on the bed. Lisa and him. Lisa screamed. The man jolted upright, eyes wide with shock, scrambling to cover himself. And then I saw his face. My stomach dropped. It wasn't Mark. It was my best friend. For a moment, my brain refused to process what I was looking at. The bed. The sheets tangled around their bodies. Lisa, half naked, clutching at the covers, her face frozen in horror. And him, Eric, my best friend since college. The guy who gave the toast at our wedding. The man who swore he'd always have my back. And now, he was in bed with my wife. I didn't even realize I was moving until I was on him. I grabbed Eric by the throat and slammed him back against the headboard. His arms flailed, trying to shove me off, but I was bigger, stronger, angrier. What the hell is this? I roared, my fingers tightening around his neck. Lisa shrieked, scrambling to pull me off him. James, stop, stop. How long? I didn't even look at her. I was too busy staring into the terrified, guilty eyes of the man who had stabbed me in the back. How long have you been screwing my wife, Eric? He gagged, his hands clawing at my grip. James, answer me. Stop. Lisa screamed again, her nails digging into my arm, but I barely felt it. Eric's face was turning red, his lips parted, gasping for air. I could have killed him. I wanted to kill him, and I might have, if Lisa hadn't suddenly shouted the one thing that made my blood freeze. It's not the first time. Everything stopped. My grip loosened. Eric coughed violently, shoving me off of him as he gasped for breath. But I didn't care. I turned to Lisa, my wife, my lying, cheating, disgusting wife. I had expected her to keep denying it, to make excuses, to try and flip it back on me like she always did. But she wasn't even crying. She wasn't even sorry. She just stood there, wrapped in the bedsheet, glaring at me like I was the problem. And then she said it. You were never enough for me, James. The words hit harder than any punch. My hands shook. I felt like I was going. Eric sat up, still wheezing, but he wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking down, avoiding my gaze, because he knew. He knew what those words meant. This wasn't just one night. This wasn't some drunken mistake. Lisa and Eric had been together for a long time. And the worst part? I never even saw it coming that I stood there, my whole body buzzing like a live wire, staring at Lisa as if she were some kind of stranger. You were never enough for me, James. The words kept repeating in my head, like a sick, twisted mantra. Lisa didn't look guilty. She didn't look apologetic. She looked done, like she had been waiting for this moment, like she wanted me to find out. Eric, on the other hand, looked terrified. Good. I stepped toward the bed, and he flinched, his hands up in weak defense. James, listen, I punched him. Hard. The impact sent him rolling off the bed, crashing to the floor with a grunt. He groaned, clutching his face, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No remorse. No hesitation. Just pure, burning rage. Lisa screamed and shoved me backward. Are you insane? I laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, humorless bark. Oh, now I'm the crazy one. You are. She pointed at Eric, who was still curled on the floor like the pathetic coward he was. You could have seriously hurt him. I should have. I turned to Eric, who refused to look at me. How long? My voice was shaking, but not from sadness. From barely contained fury. Tell me how long you two have been sneaking around behind my back. He wiped at his bleeding lip, still avoiding my gaze. Lisa scoffed. Does it matter? That snapped my attention back to her. She actually had the audacity to look bored, like I was dragging this out longer than necessary. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Say that again. Lisa rolled her eyes. James, this relationship has been dead for years. I just finally stopped pretending. Years? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't even hesitate. Yeah. Years. Something inside me snapped. I turned and grabbed Eric's crumpled dress shirt off the chair, hurling it at him. "Get the hell up, you pathetic piece of trash." He flinched but obeyed, scrambling to his feet like a guilty child. Lisa grabbed my arm. "James," I shook her off. "Shut up." She blinked. For the first time, she looked scared. I turned to Eric, my voice steady. "You're going to leave this hotel room, and if I ever see your face again, I swear to God." I stepped closer, towering over him. "I won't stop at one punch next time." He swallowed hard and nodded, his face pale. Then, without even grabbing his shoes, he rushed out of the room. That left me alone with Lisa. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, she let out a frustrated sigh and crossed her arms. Well, now what? That was it. No apology. No regret. Just indifference. I stared at her, taking in everything. The way she stood there, completely unfazed. The way she looked at me like I was just another problem to get rid of. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Lisa wasn't just a cheater. She was a monster. And she had been killing our marriage for a long, long time. I turned for the door. She scoffed. "Where are you going?" I didn't look back. "Home," I said. "To start destroying your life." I drove home in complete silence. No music. No calls. Just the sound of my own breathing, slow and controlled. Because if I let myself think too much, I might crash the damn car. Lisa had spent years lying to me. She had spent years sneaking around with Eric. And the worst part? She didn't even care. She hadn't begged. She hadn't cried. She had looked me in the face and told me I was never enough for her. That wasn't just cheating. That was war. So I was going to fight back. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I had a plan. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My chest wasn't burning with rage. No, I felt something else now. Cold. Calculated. Ready. Lisa wasn't going to get away with this. I walked into the house, and the first thing I did? I grabbed the laptop. Lisa had made one fatal mistake. She got too comfortable. She never thought I'd suspect her, never thought I'd check. But now I had a mission. I started with our shared accounts, bank statements, credit card records, emails, and within minutes I hit the jackpot. Hotel bookings. Not just from that night, at least 6 others in the past year. Dinner receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. A jewelry purchase in Eric's name. The same necklace Lisa claimed was a gift from her sister. Lisa had been funding her affair with our shared money. I grinned. She was so screwed. Next, I dug into her phone records, text logs, call history. She had been careful to delete messages, but she couldn't erase timestamps. Late-night calls to Eric. Texts labeled work meeting that matched up with hotel visits. One message from 2 months ago that made my skin crawl. "I can't wait to have you again. He's so clueless." I took a deep breath. Don't get angry. Get even. Lisa thought she could walk all over me? Thought I'd roll over and cry? No. She was about to lose everything. I grabbed my phone and dialed the number I never thought I'd need. "Hey, Mark?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "Lisa's gym trainer. The guy I thought was the other man." "Yeah." I smiled. "You still sleeping with Lisa?" A pause. "What?" Bingo. Lisa wasn't just cheating on me with Eric. She had another man, too. And now, I was going to burn her world to the ground. Mark was silent for too long. I let the question hang in the air, giving him time to process. Then I heard it, a shaky breath, a sign of guilt. "James, man, what are you talking about?" His voice had that forced calm, like a guy who just realized he walked into a trap. "You heard me," I said, leaning back in my chair, feeling the first real sense of control since this nightmare started. "Lisa, you been screwing her?" Another pause. Then "Look, bro, I didn't..." "Don't lie to me, Mark. I already know about Eric." Silence. And there it was. I could almost hear his brain short-circuiting. "Eric?" His voice dropped, like he wasn't sure he heard me right. I smirked. "Oh, you didn't know?" "Yeah." "You're not the only guy she's been sneaking around with. Turns out Lisa's been very busy." Mark swore under his breath. I heard the faint shuffle of movement, like he had just sat down. I let that sink in for a second. Let him feel exactly what I had felt. Then I hit him with the real bombshell. "You know what the best part is, Mark? She gave me an STD. A sharp inhale." "What?" "Yeah. And if she gave it to me, That means either you or Eric gave it to her. So congrats, buddy. You might want to get yourself checked. Dead silence. Then the loud slam of something hitting a table. That lying. I grinned. Good. Mark wasn't my enemy. Not anymore. Now, he was a weapon. You want to know what else? I continued, my voice casual. She used our money to pay for hotels, to buy Eric gifts. She's been laughing behind my back this whole time, thinking I'd never find out. Mark swore again, lower this time. I swear to God, if I ever see her again. Oh, you're gonna see her again, I cut in. In fact, I think we should both pay her a little visit. What do you mean? I leaned forward, my grin widening. Lisa thinks she's untouchable. She thinks she can cheat, lie, and walk away without consequences. I paused. I say we prove her wrong. Mark was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice laced with anger, he asked, "What's the plan?" I looked at the clock. Lisa would be home soon, walking into a house she thought was still under her control. She had no idea that everything was about to change. I exhaled slowly. Meet me at my house in an hour. I didn't sit around waiting. While Mark made his way over, I prepared. Lisa thought she was smart, thought she was careful, untouchable. But she forgot one thing. I wasn't the kind of man to go down without a fight. Step 1. Lock her out. I changed the locks. Every single one. The front door, the back door, even the garage keypad. If she wanted back in, she'd have to knock like a stranger. Step 2. Gather the evidence. I pulled every screenshot, every bank statement, and every hotel receipt into one neat little folder. I made copies, printed some, put them in an envelope labeled for the lawyer. Lisa wanted to humiliate me? She was about to be the one crawling. A sharp knock at the door. I opened it and there stood Mark. He looked pissed. I barely had time to register his expression before he pushed past me into the house. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists. I got tested, he said without preamble. Clinic did a rapid test. I raised an eyebrow. And? He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. I'm clean. For the first time in this entire mess, something new clicked into place. Mark didn't give Lisa the STD. And I sure as hell didn't have it before her. Which meant, Lisa wasn't just cheating with Eric and Mark. There was someone else. Mark must have realized it at the same time, because his face darkened. She's got a third guy. I let out a breath. At least a third. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a caged animal. That whore. I smirked. Now you get it. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway snapped both of our heads up. Lisa was home. I didn't feel nervous. Not even a little. I felt ready. We both walked to the front door. I unlocked it, just enough for her to step inside the trap. The second she walked in, the fun began. Lisa barely made it through the door before she froze. Her eyes darted between me and Mark. Her keys were still in her hand, her purse slung over one shoulder, but I could see the gears in her head turning fast. James? She asked slowly, cautiously. What is he doing here? Mark let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Oh, don't act surprised, sweetheart. We had a little chat. Lisa's face changed, just for a second. A flicker of real panic before she forced on that fake, manipulative calm. Okay, she said carefully, placing her purse on the table. I don't know what you two think is going on. But I threw the envelope onto the table in front of her. She stopped mid-sentence. Slowly, she reached for it, flipping it open. The receipts, the bank statements, the hotel logs, everything. I crossed my arms. I know about Eric. I know about Mark. And now, thanks to my recent doctor's visit, I also know about the other guy. Lisa's hands shook. And for the first time since this nightmare started, she had nothing to say. Lisa just stood there, gripping the envelope, her face pale. For the first time, she had no comeback. No fake tears. No twisted words to manipulate the situation. She was cornered. I could feel Mark tense beside me, his fists clenched. He was barely holding himself back. And I didn't blame him. Lisa's eyes darted between us, and I could practically see the gears in her head turning, desperately searching for a way out, a way to flip the script. Then there it was. Her expression changed. The fear, the guilt, gone. In its place, anger. Lisa let out a sharp, bitter laugh. She actually laughed. You guys really think you're the victims here? She sneered, tossing the envelope onto the table like it was nothing. God, you're so pathetic. Mark took a step forward, but I held up a hand, stopping him. This was it. Lisa's mask had finally slipped. Pathetic? I repeated, keeping my voice calm. You cheat on me with my best friend, screw around with multiple guys, give me a damn infection, and now you want to act like this is my fault? Lisa rolled her eyes. Oh please. You weren't some perfect husband, James. You were boring. Mark let out a low, dangerous chuckle. Wow, you really are a piece of work. Lisa turned on him next. And you're one to talk. You act like you're so pissed, but let's be real, Mark, you were never boyfriend material. You were just convenient. His jaw clenched. Excuse me? Lisa shrugged. What, you thought you were special? She scoffed. You were just another option. A backup plan. And guess what? She smirked. I got tired of you too. Mark took another step forward, but this time I didn't stop him. Lisa flinched. Finally, for the first time since she walked through that door, she looked scared. You think you can play people like this? Mark's voice was low, lethal. Mess with their lives, their health, and just walk away laughing? Lisa didn't respond. She just swallowed hard, her eyes flicking toward the door. She was looking for an escape. I smirked. Go ahead. Run. Her head snapped back to me. But before you do, I continued, stepping closer. Let me make something crystal clear. You are finished. Her breath hitched. What? You're locked out of the house, I said, enjoying the way her eyes widened in panic. Your name's off the joint account. Your affair funding? Cut off. She opened her mouth, but I wasn't done. I've got the screenshots, the transactions, the texts. You want a divorce? I leaned in. Good, because I'm taking everything. Lisa's face twisted into something ugly. You can't do that. Mark laughed. He already did. Lisa spun toward him, her lips parting, probably ready to spit some more venom, when his phone suddenly buzzed. He frowned and pulled it out. The color drained from his face. I glanced over. A message from an unknown number. Lisa gave it to me too. Just got tested. We need to talk. Mark and I locked eyes. Another guy. Lisa saw it too. And for the first time since this all started, she looked truly, genuinely afraid. Lisa's face drained of color as she stared at Mark's phone. She knew exactly what that message meant. Her little web of lies, the delicate balancing act of her multiple affairs, was crumbling right in front of her. Mark exhaled sharply, his grip tightening around his phone. You really didn't give a damn about anyone, did you? His voice was eerily calm. Too calm. Lisa snapped out of her shock and folded her arms, putting on that fake confidence again. Oh, grow up, Mark. What did you expect? A fairy tale romance? She scoffed. You were just as dumb as James, thinking I was some loyal little housewife. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. You know what, Lisa? I said quietly, stepping forward. I don't care what you think anymore. You're disgusting. You've lied, you've cheated, and you've infected people with your reckless stupidity. Her jaw tensed. I didn't know. I laughed. You didn't know? Oh, that's rich. You knew exactly what you were doing, Lisa. And now, you're going to pay for it. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. You're leaving tonight. I pointed to the door. Your stuff? I'll have it packed and dropped off. You? Not setting foot in this house again. Her eyes narrowed. You can't just, I can. And I already did. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Oh, and in case you think about fighting me on this, I sent everything to a lawyer. Every receipt, every text, every medical record. You think you'll walk away from this clean? I smiled. Think again. Lisa's fake confidence cracked. Her mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at Mark, but he was just staring at her with pure disgust. You should go, Mark said coldly. Lisa's face twisted into a snarl. You two are pathetic. I smirked. And you're homeless. That hit her. Her lips parted, her breathing sharp. She knew she had nowhere to go. Slowly, she turned and stormed toward the door. She yanked it open, pausing just long enough to spit out, "You're gonna regret this." I tilted my head. "I already regret meeting you." Her nostrils flared, and then she was gone. The door slammed shut. Silence. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. Mark exhaled, shaking his head. Jesus. I sat down, rubbing my temples. That woman is a damn demon. Mark flopped onto the couch. So what now? I let out a slow, satisfied breath. Now? I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Now we watch her life burn. The next morning, I woke up to peaceful silence. No Lisa, no tension, just the quiet hum of my own house, my house. But Lisa's downfall wasn't over yet. I had one last move to make. I picked up my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and dialed a familiar number. Eric's wife. She answered on the second ring. Hello? Hey Sarah, I said, my voice calm. We need to talk. A pause. Then wariness. James? What's going on? I took a deep breath. It's about Eric. And Lisa. The silence stretched long and heavy. Then very quietly, Sarah whispered, I knew it. Bingo. I laid everything out for her. The hotels, the receipts, the texts, the infection. By the time I was done, she wasn't crying. She was furious. Thank you for telling me, she said, her voice shaking with controlled rage. I need to go. I almost felt bad for Eric. Almost. But I wasn't done yet. I hung up and checked my emails. Right on schedule, my lawyer had sent over the divorce papers. Everything was laid out. Lisa got nothing. No house. No money. Just a legal boot to her cheating backside. I forwarded the email straight to Lisa with a simple message. Sign it, or I'll take you to court, and trust me, you'll lose worse. Less than a minute later, my phone rang. Lisa. I let it go to voicemail. Then I blocked her number. Lisa was finally out of my life. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. For the first time in years, I felt free. Lisa thought she could destroy me. Instead, I burned her entire world down.